All right, everyone. It's Friday, and you know what that means? It means it's time for manufacturing e-commerce success. I am one of your co-hosts here, Damon Pistolka. Wow, am I excited for our guest today because we're going to be talking about empowering women and students in tech. I'm going to turn it over to that pretty man right over there, Kurt Anderson. Take it away, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Damon, happy Friday. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you, your family, everybody out there. Welcome to the show. We are just so thrilled. This is such an honor. It's like we have a little bit of a celebrity here, Damon. Do you feel a little nervous, right?
I am.
We have Dr. Sirisha in the house here. Dr. Sirisha, happy Friday. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here having conversation with both of you.
Well, this is such a thrill. Thank you. I know you're super busy. We appreciate you taking the time. You know, a couple of things I want to dive in. We've got a bunch of questions. We're going to dive in. Your vast experience in semiconductor manufacturing, what you're doing for young folks, women. We're going to dive into all these things. But before we go there, I have a quick question for you. When you were a little girl growing up, and I believe India. Did you grow up in India? Did I catch that correctly? I did a little due diligence on you. And so grew up in India. As a little girl growing up, who was your hero? Who did you look up to as a little girl?
At that point, I remember in elementary middle school, there was this advertisement in the newspaper. These are the days of papers that we read. And there was this advertisement from NASA, which said that you could send out a postal. It used to be called airmail. You could send a post and they would send you a kit with their pictures and documents. So I remember writing it out, and of course you waited a few weeks and getting this envelope, which I actually still have at home, with all the pictures in the original envelope, which had pictures of the space and science and stuff. And that was exciting to be sort of in that STEM space.
All right, so it was in your DNA early. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you take that energy, that excitement from NASA, and you bring your talents, your skill set, your excitement to the United States. And I believe you end up at Carnegie Mellon. Do I have that correct?
Yes, I did.
So right down the road from me, you're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and so you go to Carnegie Mellon, just a wonderful university, master's degree, Ph.D. What inspired you to go that direction and land your Ph.D.?
So I grew up actually, frankly, in a very academic environment. So I grew up on this sort of academic campus, so surrounded by scientists and engineers. So maybe it's part of the DNA, as you call it. So I studied physics, and I did my master's in physics in India, but my research was more practical, like condensed matter, material science. I think quantum mechanics was, I was kind of hitting the wall at that with so much math. So I switched to doing research, and I really enjoyed it. So when I came to CMU, I had applied for a material science degree. So sort of moving from science into engineering. And for many of those who may make that change, I'll tell you, it's quite a shift. If you ask me now what the shift is, I don't remember, but I remember sort of the mindset of shifting was quite hard to do. And not just, culture and stuff, but just the technology wise. And I really enjoyed, I had a terrific advisor, and doing the research. I actually quit after my master's to start work. So I went back for my PhD many years later when I was a stay-at-home mom.
Nice. Awesome. And how did you end up, you brought your talents, your skill set into the semiconductor industry. What inspired you? A lot of different industries that you could have chosen. Why semiconductor?
So when I was looking for jobs, if somebody is in this field, I'll be frank, material science, right? When you're studying and you go to a job fair, you're going to find very few employers out there. You find them in electrical. There's certain sectors that they tend to cover. And so when I was looking, there was a company, Applied Materials was my first employer. So I ended up working there because they make equipment for semiconductor manufacturers. So it was a good fit to take material science and sort of the technology to learn how to do this. And once I got into the industry, even to this day, having been in the industry 20 years, it still fascinates and totally amazes me that we can make a semiconductor chip.
Yeah.
It's such a complicated process, so tiny, and how we get to make it work at such small scale is incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely mind-blowing how small things are on a chip. It's, yeah.
Yeah,
Hard to fathom.
and you look at the little diodes or you look at these little parts and you're like, it does what? This resistor does what? And so so share a little bit. You're inspired by STEM. You Ph.D. You go into semiconductor. Let's and Damon and I are big girl dads. For our young ladies out there that might be considering this a career, or maybe it's not even on their radar whatsoever. What did you find so exciting? What was so inspiring to you?
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I mean, you're girl dad, so that's awesome. I'm a mom of boys, but I meet a lot of young women, all across the place. And I cannot. I mean, STEM to me, if someone has, I'm gonna do this pitch for STEM right now. If anyone is inclined, especially if you're in school, let's talk about elementary to middle school. I think there's sort of a pipeline leak already starting there for especially young girls moving away from STEM. I see that from the people I intersect with. So if anyone is thinking about STEM, finds math or physics interesting, don't let it pull you away thinking it's hard. Don't self-limit yourself. Think it will be hard. We all struggled with math and physics in school. I did. I maybe I should share this. My kids know this. I flunked out of a physics class in my master's. I flunked out at different stages. I have failed critical exams. Actually, even my first PhD qualifiers, I failed. But I've never actually shared that before. But I think it's important for people to know because they see this end picture and say, "Oh wow, I had to," and you have to come back. And then I got admitted to CFU after that master's degree. So don't let that hold you back. Get help. Ask someone, a teacher, a friend, someone who can help you. Because if you're even slightly inclined, take the opportunity because STEM opens so many doors. You can do anything and everything. You could be in sports, you could be in music, you could be in media, you could do anything. But I think the doors it can open are so many, and we should not hold ourselves back thinking this is hard. It's hard for everyone. Don't even doubt that someone makes it look simple. There might be a few exceptions to it, but everyone, it's a learning journey. So go ahead and take that shot at it.
Take the shot. Go ahead, Damon.
Well, and you said it well, Dr. Sirisha. It is if you're not pushing that hard in your education to really go to the point of failure, of I don't know how to do this, you're really not pushing your education as far as you could. Because yes, you may fail the first time, but you can work on it and come back again. And like you said, and come back through it. And how much did you grow in that process? You grew an awful lot. Which is,
absolutely right. It's fun to find out that you can challenge yourself. You have self-doubt. Someone else may doubt that you'll pass or you're not going to. But if you come back and try and you actually do it, I mean, I think builds a certain level of confidence that nothing is going to hold you back. And I mean, even through my career, I've experienced a layoff. I've quit work, like I said, to be a stay-at-home mom. All those things in retrospect are confidence building exercises because we will experience life change. The question is, how do you react to it? How do you come back from it? And I'm not going to make it sound simple. People are in different life situations. Their circumstances may be incredibly more complicated than mine were. Look for support, find a support network. And I think that's also really helpful. You have to find a network, find some supportive friends, move out of the house. It could be going to the library, it could be anything, taking a walk. But we need to be able to push our own boundaries because technology is changing so fast. We don't know what AI and all this thing is going to do to our world, right? And unless we keep learning, we are going to stagnate and hit a wall again.
Right. So I want to go here. So Damon, I know this resonates for both of us. Damon, your mother earned her PhD, and after raising kids, my mother went back to school, went off to Smith College, and as she went to the University of Pittsburgh, so she was right near you, Dr. Sirisha. So stay-at-home mom, lot going on. What triggers like, hey, what the heck? I'm going to go get my PhD. I have nothing better to do, right? Like what was going on there?
Yeah, so it started a little before that. I'd been working about 4.5 years, and I'd stepped away. I'd started my PhD work when I started working, and I wanted to go back and finish it. Sort of this urge to want to complete this process because it was a challenge in a way. It was sort of a personal goal, and it started earlier in the sense I was working full time. I was taking a couple of classes at the local university. My son was 2 and I was expecting my second one when I started my PhD program. And with all of those 4 things going on, obviously it was too much. And in the back of my mind, I already knew I was likely to quit work. I was going to take a break. I wanted to spend some time with my kids. So I quit work and then finished my PhD program while I was a stay-at-home mom when my second son was born. And I was off from work for a few years. But in a lot of ways, it was the best time. I mean, obviously, I had the privilege and the opportunity to do it. But when people ask me, being a stay at home mom was much tougher than working when I came back, because the sort of ecosystem of being a stay at home mom, the process never ends, right? It's a cycle that keeps on. Like the dishes are always in the sink. Someone
Right.
always needs help. So
Right.
it's like a circular process. But I got to make friends. It's the same friends. You know, our kids are graduating from high school. They're going off to college, and we still all hang out together. And it's been like a journey. And I I cannot say enough good things about it. If someone is even thinking about it, and it's a hard decision to make to step away from the workforce, whether it's a parent, caregiving, whatever, or personal reasons. But if you think you can manage it, don't doubt that you can always come back. I think there's opportunities galore for you to figure out a way to come back.
Well, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And what I'd love to share now is you and I had a great conversation. What you've done for your career, and I like to, and I know you're very modest, very humble. You're like, hey, I'm not here for me. You want to share a message, but I would love for young folks to hear out there, what the education that you've earned and obtained, what you've done, what you've accomplished, and just share some of the highlights and some of the exciting things that you've done in your career. Why manufacturing is so awesome. Why STEM, what STEM can lead to. Let's look at the end result. Can you share a little bit there?
Sure. So I spent 20 plus years in the semiconductor industry.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're looking for what I've achieved, I guess personally, getting my PhD was a very important goal for me.
Mhm.
It was a way to challenge yourself, solve an important problem. But now I get to also leverage some of those skill sets, because it's also a skill set, right? It's not just about the research. You learn a way to solve problems. So leverage that as I'm running my business. It also helped me leverage that strength when I was working with internal and external customers. So I worked with a lot of customers in the end of my career at TI that I was working. So I would work with them and look at engineering solutions. So the way my working style tends to be is there's a technical and engineering solution component, which is very, very strong, obviously. But there's also a huge people person component of collaborating, internal partners. I had teams that I managed, so enabling them to grow, get them, enabling to see how to get people promoted and advocating for them, but also building relationships with external partners so you can really solve problems together. I mean, all the simple problems have probably been solved. The things that need teams to be able to come together, and you need different skills. So that, I think, for me, I consider that one of my super strengths. How to solve a technical problem. I can solve it, but also in addition to that, how can I leverage the strengths of others to bring the solution to mind and to end quickly so that we can fix this faster.
Excellent. So I want to slide here. So great, academia, wonderful corporate career. You become an entrepreneur. That's quite a pivot, right? Can you share a little bit, say the early stages of that entrepreneur, journey, what it looked like? Scary, exciting. What were you feeling? What was going through your mind at that stage?
Oh, I think it's been a huge learning curve. I don't think it quite prepares you for what you're looking for. Because what I've come to realize, I mean, lots of lessons learned. And I think I actually made a LinkedIn post a few months ago. The analogy that comes to mind is like you're farming or gardening. You're tilling the soil, you're sowing these seeds, and you have no idea which is going to sprout. I mean, maybe many people come out with exactly they know what they want to build, but often you end up pivoting, or they have no idea, and you're kind of going through, which is probably what most cases. In corporate, there's a very straight structure, right? You work within the structure. Yes, there are new problems, but there is a system that holds you in place. Here, you're on your own. You're figuring out all different aspects. Uh, I've had a lot of like pivots in this. It's been a journey. It's scary. It's exciting, But in this way, I've managed to connect with a lot of people. I've also built another ecosystem of other entrepreneurs locally. Some of us meet often because to support, to exchange ideas. I go to startup networks, I go to these meetups to meet other like-minded people. And it is, I hesitate to say this, but I think it's not for the faint-hearted. It is challenging. You have to be willing to like push through, because there'll be, I think I heard some very successful CEO say this. He said there'll be days when I feel like clapping and other days I want to hide under my desk. So I think that's exactly what it feels like. You're like, this is awesome. And then you get this next email or this next message and you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And it's like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Welcome.
I think you describe it perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. What, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So now I want to slide over to, we have a bunch of things we want to dive into. I want to slide into, what the topic of our program is today is, please share, how you're making the world a better place. You have Sahita Technologies. You're very passionate about helping young folks, women in particular, getting into tech, STEM. Just share a little bit about how are you making the world a better place today?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways I intersect. So I work on enabling leadership talent pipelines at organizations and companies. This is about building strong talent, women focused, but just young, sort of entry level positions. How do you grow your career? And I think you have to look at it from two sides. Obviously, for the person, it is about enabling their journey. But from a company standpoint, it enables them to drive innovation, because if you have engaged employees, people who are heard, who know that when they have suggestions, you listen to it, it drive innovation. Because just using the simple example of speaking up in meetings, right? You want to hear different perspectives. That way you can de-risk the thing. For Sahita Technologies, I focus on driving advanced manufacturing solutions. There is, huge shift going on as all of these technologies are coming. We are trying to navigate the space. How does it affect predictive maintenance? There's a lot of conversations around how the intersection of AI and everything can do, but how do you streamline manufacturing operations? How do you drive that? And also workforce development solutions. So I engage and sit on boards which talk about semiconductor workforce solutions, because the semiconductor industry is obviously onshoring and reshoring in the US. But actually, if you look across the globe, it's the same thing is happening. Every country is trying to bring this industry back or grow this industry new. There's a huge talent shortage. And I mean, in some ways, these ecosystems are being rebuilt. So how do you engage industry, academia, government to build these programs, and how do you attract students into it? I think that is in some ways the bigger challenge.
Yeah.
In my mind, we may build Rome, but how do people know that they should show up at Rome, that there is a roadmap to Rome and Rome exists?
Yeah,
And
we talk about that every week. We talk about that in manufacturing, but there's so many people don't even know the wonderful opportunities that there are in all parts of it. And
exactly. And that is a big challenge, because I just look at my own kids and the ecosystems I'm in, right? A lot of kids are moving to computer science, which is a tremendous field. But where do they see it? They see it with Google and Meta and all of these companies, and they pay really well, and they see these opportunities. As industries, manufacturing sectors, advanced manufacturing companies, be it semiconductor, aerospace, all of these companies, they have a talent shortage gap. They are trying to attract technician, engineering talent. It doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. It could be a 2-year degree. It could be a certificate. But how do you let students know that these opportunities exist? Because not everyone wants to code or work in front of the computer. I'm not a coder. I use software tools, but if you ask me about how they work, I do not know. But I like the engineering problem solving. Some kids, young people like hands-on, they like building robots, they like fixing their cars. I mean, they could be doing anything. So it's a different set of skill set that they have to know that, hey, there is this whole industry that I can be extremely successful. I can get to work on the coolest stuff and, make good. I mean, one of them, let's not forget the economics. You want to make good money, you're going to make really good money. And even if you talk about AI chips won't exist if these manufacturers don't build the chips. So It's a circular
Yeah.
economy. We need all of it to work together. So we
Yeah,
need.
it's so great. So great. We got Diane Byers weighing in.
Hey,
She's
Diane,
she
happy Friday to you,
yeah,
my friend. Great to have you.
make the world a better place, help grow their career. Awesome. She's such a great supporter of manufacturing, Dr. Sirisha. And she said, you're speaking my language. And then one of the things, like I said, we talk about this a lot. Absolutely. How do you let them know about these opportunities? And she's speaking towards children and younger people and the opportunities in manufacturing, because so much.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no one solution that fits, right? So there's many different ways. So at a community, at an ISD level, at a school district level, or be it charter or private school, is finding parents or mentors who work in this. It could be the robotics club, it could be other things. And I know that all schools may not have the facilities to do this, but I've gone to robotics competitions, and sometimes the schools that you don't think have the facilities are the ones that are extremely successful. So don't let that be your barrier. It's about working with your local economic demo, EDCs, your local chamber of commerces. It's about your local universities, community colleges, SME, the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, there's SRC for semiconductors. There are all of these national consortiums that exist that are advocating for this. There's a lot of things going on. There is, like for girls who code, there are these organizations. If someone wants to know more, they can just email me or DM me on LinkedIn and we can have another conversation. But there are things going on, but we need more visibility. And let's be frank, everybody's on digital media. If you're trying to catch Gen Z and whatever the next generations are, you have to have a digital presence. You cannot do it the old fashioned way and expect them. I mean, I'm also dating myself when I say that. I don't mean anything by it. But we cannot expect them to necessarily fit into our ecosystems. We have to understand where they are and go where they are sitting, because they are not. And I don't judge them for it. I think it's great that they are very clear about what they're willing to do and what they want to do. And kudos to them for holding their space. And we need to figure out how to mesh it together. We cannot each hold our fort and say we will stay where we are, but we need to bring people together to solve this.
All right. Tons of ideas there. Great suggestions. We bring on, as a matter of fact, Damon, next week we have the Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. That's a great organization throughout the United States that supports manufacturers. We have a great program coming up on Wednesday. We're going to do a deep dive there. Dr. Sirisha, how about for our manufacturing friends? The manufacturers themselves, constantly, through COVID, post-COVID, they're looking for talent. Any tips, suggestions, advice? I know you rattled off a bunch of different organizations, but what could they do internally to maybe build that culture, generate that excitement in their community to say boy, that's a great place to work? Any suggestions for our manufacturing?
Yeah, especially, okay. So my understanding, what I've learned is if you're looking for technicians, they're often from your local community. These are not the people who are necessarily commuting long distances. They may move, but not likely move from Colorado to Texas for a job. Right. So your local economy is very intrinsic to this. So I would say those companies need to be, companies tend to have, say, let's bring your kids to work. They are certain ecosystems. You need to start going to these schools, inviting school field trips, going to the teachers, having workshops for the teachers. What we forget is teachers are your biggest advocates, right? I mean, I'll give an example. When my kids are in school, the counselor has 300 students. There's no way she can engage and tell them what to do. And she has such a wide variety. Your science teachers, your math teachers, the ones who see the kids daily, get them to, have programs, have summer training programs for them. They are also looking for opportunities to learn and grow. Pay them a stipend, have them come and have a workshop. There are so many ways, because if you get your local community, your teachers, your other ecosystems to be advocates for you, they want to grow. They want to see their own children, other children succeed. They want their communities to grow. They need jobs. I mean, that's part of what every city's charter is. Do the partnership. Try and figure out how to intersect this. That is one way to do it.
That is a fantastic way to do it, right? And I'll tell you, you just gave a phenomenal idea. We work with manufacturers on trying to figure out the whole e-commerce thing or digital transformation. And it's not just attracting customers, it's attracting ideal employees. You're making such a phenomenal point. So for our manufacturers out there, where maybe if they don't see the value in, well, I'm a manufacturer, why should I have a Facebook page, or why should I have a YouTube channel? What a great, I did an in-person workshop yesterday, and one of the manufacturers was talking about how they're doing all sorts of videos. And now people are chiming in on their videos. Hey, we didn't know that you did this. We didn't know you had this. We didn't know that your staff looked like this. What a wonderful culture you have. Like it's letting the community know like what's behind the curtain, and, so it's not necessarily just attracting new business or new customers. And one gentleman that was in our workshop yesterday was like, hey, we're at capacity. We can't take on another customer. Well, guess what? You need to recruit employees. That's why you need to have that digital presence. So any suggestions there as far as like what they could be doing online to help strengthen that presence?
Absolutely. I mean, see, before we had gatekeepers, right? You got only digital media or print media by working with the magazine or with the TV station and stuff. Now it's all equitable in the sense you have access to free PR, branding yourself, how you show up. And I think we have to be conscious. I know, and I've seen a gamut of companies, right? I just use LinkedIn as an example because that's really the professional network where a lot of people see. YouTube is a great resource. If people had to pick, these would be the two channels, especially for something like this, because you get professionals to engage with, and then you get a whole different ecosystem of people across, demographics and across the world that you can engage on YouTube. And you get to show who you are, what you do, and that is a great way to connect, to build that, because now you get to control what you say. I mean, not fully, but up to a point. And then you get to build a connection, because in all essence, even what we're doing here, right? It's about building community. It's about building a connection in a way, because sales and marketing does not work by just pitching somebody and them coming. They have to trust you. They have to know you. I guess they're using NIL for sports, but in essence, that's what we're doing for all our businesses. Name, image, likeness. Someone has to, feel confident, trust you, like you. And that's how business relationships develop, even if you're selling a product. Especially for longevity, that's what you need for repeat business, because that's a big part of it. It's not just getting new customers each time.
What a fantastic analogy. I love that. Hey, speaking, you know what? I don't want to digress, but I dropped your TED Talk in the chat box here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, because we're coming to, I think we're close to the top of the hour, and sometimes if people have a meeting that they're going to come into, absolutely check out Dr. Sirisha's TED Talk. It is absolutely fantastic. And if you don't mind, we're going to come back to, we want to talk further about STEM and the folks that you're recruiting, the wonderful work that you're doing. But Damon, I have a percentage that I want to throw at you. I want to see if you know the answer.
Let's hear it.
What percentage of professional athletes struggle financially after they retire? Dr. Sirisha, do I have that? Is that question correct? Do I have that right? How many professional athletes struggle financially after they retire from professional sports?
I have no idea.
Just throw a number out there. How, they make
72%.
You're pretty darn close, dude. You're isn't he? He's very close. Dr. Sirisha, what's the number?
Yeah, it's over 70%. And these are athletes who make over $1 million on average a year, and they go broke. Like Allen Iverson also went broke, earning $200 million. So it's that financial education, financial literacy. So I used to host a podcast like we talked about, Kurt, and I used to talk more about navigating career, but I used to talk about finances, because you go to work, you enjoy it, but you also go to work to make money, and you want to be able to have choices and options. And we don't really learn financial education in school. So it's very important for us to learn those skills, because those are things that stay with us forever. So, and how you build your future, time is your best friend. So the earlier you start, if you have time on your side, it obviously helps.
Right. Yeah. So it's a phenomenal TED Talk. I strongly encourage everybody to check that out. And you tell a funny story about your son buying shoes in the TED Talk. Do you want to do you mind sharing that real quick?
Yeah. So the TED Talk is about raising money smart kids, about how do you talk to your kids about financial literacy. So because my son was around 8 years old, and school was getting ready to start, and he wanted to buy a pair of shoes. And for some reason, I think he had a pair of Reeboks, and he was very fixated on getting Reeboks. He thought that was the only shoe brand. So we went to the Reebok store, and he picked up a pair of shoes. They were like $80. I mean, now maybe $80 isn't that much. This is quite a while ago. And I was like, I told him, no, my budget when I left home was $40. So anything else that comes out of your pocket. They used to get an allowance. So it was going to come out of his pocket. And he looked at me and, very hesitantly went and put the shoes back. And he walked around the store, picked up $60 shoes. You could see the wheels turning. Oh, $20, put it back, $50. And he kept looking, and he didn't find anything he liked. So he put it back, and he finally came and asked me, can we go to another store? I was like, sure. So we went to another store. He still did the same thing. He didn't find it. Went to another store. Again, and I think by the fourth or fifth store, we were running out of shoe stores to go to. The only mall has only so many. So we hit the last store, and he picked up a shoe box. He was trying pairs and looking, and I think he found one that was like $39.95 that he liked. And I was happy, and he got that shoe. And, I paid the taxes. Wasn't going to charge him taxes for it. So he was happy and I was happy, but it was very like staying on budget, because they knew that, hey, if this is the budget I thought about, that the rest was going to come out. So he'd have to see if $20 for a kid and $40 for a kid who's getting an allowance of a couple of bucks a month is a lot of money to give away for a pair of shoes. They're not that tied to it. So I think practice, my TED Talk is full of stories, examples either of mine or things I've read, some statistics, research. It's weaved with this, but it essentially boils down to just what we were talking about career, right? You're going to make mistakes. Right. When you're young, the consequences of making those mistakes is so little that you can learn. Even if he had bought the $80 shoes, he would have still learned something from it, right? That was a choice he would have made. But the earlier you learn, but it comes with a lot of practice. We can talk to our kids, but or it could be your nieces, it could be your grandkids, it could be a family friend's child, doesn't matter. But the more you practice, the better you're going to figure out and learn. And every one of us has different financial styles. So I'm not saying there's a one style. You have to find out what fits you. But there are certain caveats and the basics of finances that we need to figure out how to navigate. And oftentimes what happens is at 21, someone gets a job and then they figure out, they get their first paycheck and realize taxes. Wait, they told me I'm getting $5,000. Why do I only have $3,800 or whatever it is?
Right.
What happened to the rest of the money?
Right.
So
yeah. Right. Those darn little taxes get in the way.
Yeah.
Who came up with that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, hey, Diane, and I know we're over the top of the hour here. So if you're just joining us, we're here with Dr. Sirisha Kuchimanchi. And so, Dr. Sirisha, let's continue. You were talking before. All right. So TED Talk, connect with Dr. Sirisha here on LinkedIn, all sorts of wonderful things going on here. We were talking about underrepresented markets that really could be, a great skill set or, labor force for manufacturers. Do you want to go there and just share a little bit from your experience or how you're helping that?
Yeah. So underrepresented. So one of the things that really strongly aligns with what I work on is how do you enable underrepresented communities access to STEM jobs? So this goes back to earlier in the conversation, because STEM, first of all, is technology and driven. And let's not forget, STEM jobs pay really well. So for underrepresented communities who might be struggling or at a certain economic scale, the ability to access these jobs not only helps them, but helps lift their families, their communities. Oftentimes what we see is we look for role models, right? We need to find people who look like us, who hear us, or who might have walked something similar. Not always, but it definitely helps. So how do we find advocates to get into these communities to talk about STEM, about these opportunities? And it goes back to the conversation on schools and teachers and stuff. You need to be where the students are, because they don't, if I'm a student living in a community where, say, my parent works 2 jobs, we're constrained for time and economically, how do I know what is out there? All of us as kids are usually only surrounded by the ecosystem that our parents and we surround ourselves with. So we don't have you have digital media, but digital media gets curated a certain way. How do you find out what is there out there? And how do you access them? So it's very important to be able to, you could mentor, you could work with different sectors. It goes back to, if you're talking about manufacturing companies, goes back to working through ISD. Like I know this gentleman who hosts the Renaissance Drew, and he reaches different communities and talks to them about manufacturing jobs. Young people are excited about it. They just don't know about it. How do we get them? How do we retain them? Because in this economy, yes, getting talent is hard, no matter which sector of the industry you're, but retention is a big challenge. Companies struggle with retaining young people, right? Because they want to move, they want to try new things. It's a very different, like when I joined, people had 20-year badges, 40-year badges, and it was like a sort of a question of pride and honor to have that. And that's what we looked. But now if you look, 3 years, 5 years, people usually want to move and try something different. So
Right. I love what you're saying. And again, referencing the workshop I was at yesterday. So manufacturer, they make these massive magnets that go on cranes, and they're picking up metal work and what have you. They are absolutely crushing it on YouTube Shorts. And what they're doing is they're experimenting with different songs on the different shorts. And so they're studying their demographic, their ICP, and they're like, well, it's older dudes. And so they're playing like a Queen song, or like, some songs that, the guys our age would listen to. And they're getting thousands of views by playing, Queen, We Will Rock You. And it's absolutely hysterical. So, and here they're just being creative. They're being innovative, but what they're doing is they're meeting their customer. I think Diane dropped that comment, meet your customer where they are. And so, we've now become, my buddy sent me a little GIF or whatever the other day. It said, I watch Instagram Reels, which are, the TikToks that were hot 2 weeks ago, So it's like, I don't watch TikTok. I watch Instagram Reels, that were popular from 2 weeks ago. So, but the thing is, like, communicating with that customer, with that ICP. Dr. Sirisha, what have you seen, as you're coaching with folks that you're working with, any examples? You mentioned Drew, any other examples that you want to share that's working really well?
Yeah, because so I work a lot of industry academia collaborations, right? Like how do we build a digital strategy? How do we look at a digital footprint? How do we strategize on building workforce solutions? Because everything we have to take a step back and look holistically. Like the way I like to work is, okay, I know here, but my question always is, what is your end goal? What is your ideal end goal? Don't tell me today, 1 year from now. Like ideally where? And sometimes we've not thought about it, which is fair enough. But where would you like to go? And asking those questions and making people think about it. And, then asking, how are we reaching this customer? Who is your audience, right? I mean, you host this show. You're always thinking, who is your audience? When I started a podcast, I didn't think about who my audience was. There was a message I wanted to talk about. But then you start thinking about, everyone talks about this avatar, and you have to think about who your audience is. I mean, who your audience is. There is Kurt, who likes listening to Queen music. He's in manufacturing and he likes playing pickleball on Sunday. Whatever it might be. You need like this whole persona, and you have to kind of talk to one person. Right. And the thing is, the solution when I'm working with someone right now is not about what I think the solution should be. I need to understand if my customer is going to think of that as a solution. So I need to actually reach them and ask, hey, this is how I'm designing it. Am I reaching you? Are you my right audience? I mean, I know you are my right audience, but is this the journey you're going to navigate? Is this the journey you're willing to navigate? Because if you're not going to use these resources, I can create whatever I want. It would just be a wasted effort. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about reaching these, you need to reach these, say a high school student who's in 10th grade, who's trying to make a decision. Maybe they didn't know they could be a technician and they want to be a technician. How do you reach them? Go talk to them. Go find out. I mean, I know there are IRB regulations and all of this, but figure out how to work the system, make a focus group and reach them. Talk to them, maybe get high school interns to come to your company, work and learn internship with a school campus. Right. Because even students and teachers and, I've CTE coordinators, they want their students to be successful. They're trying to find different ways. The education system, and this is across the globe, it's not just the US thing, is they're very structured a certain way. And there are certain success metrics. And let's be frank, whether we work in education, corporate, wherever, we are driven by success metrics, which are important. They're chosen very carefully, but they're also very structured. It doesn't allow for someone who's not fitting that journey. Maybe you measure college how many kids are going to college. But what if someone wants to take a different path? They don't show up on your metrics. So what resources do you have for them? And how much can you allocate to it? And maybe you find that instead of 5 students, you really have 30 students who might be interested in this pipeline. How do you figure out that solution that can work for those 30 people? And you start small and then you grow. And then you work with partners. Maybe you find an ISD next to you or community next to you, and then you build an ecosystem together.
All right, this is such good stuff. You are speaking in Pittsburgh. Is it next week or a week and a half? You mentioned?
Yeah, so June 3rd, that week, the Smart Experience is being hosted in Pittsburgh by SME and other organizations. So I'm going to be a panelist in the Women in Smart panel. So if anyone's in Pittsburgh or associated with any of these, please reach out. Actually, even if you're not in Pittsburgh, reach out to me. I like connecting with people on LinkedIn. You never know where you'll find an intersection point. So ping me on LinkedIn. And if you're looking for solutions, just reach me as well, and we can have a chat.
Well, all right. Fantastic, Damon. We'll start winding down. Yeah. And a couple of things that I want to recap on, just, all sorts of excellent tips, advice. One thing, what sparks your passion for this specific cause? Why this cause out of anything that you could be fired up about?
So for about a year, I hosted a local radio show, a live talk show. It's a very different experience than a podcast if you have tried doing it. I mean, you're doing a live show here on LinkedIn, so you probably have a pretty good idea. So I used to do it on a South Asian radio channel. And, a lot of radio channels that are niched for certain demographics are run on a certain FM spectrum or an AM spectrum. And it got me thinking about, there were probably South Asian, Black, Latinx channels on similar frequencies as ours. And I live in Dallas, so there's lots of different neighborhoods, different economics, demographics. And it's like, I've had a lot of opportunity and privilege, to access STEM, to all of this. Definitely had more than probably most people. My kids obviously see that, and that ecosystem is very different. And I think about all the people who don't have those role models, who may not know how to access this. And I think they would love it. They would like to do it. I mean, I used to work with colleagues who grew up on a farm, and, they're so smart because they've had to, and like when I used to ask, I came from India, so it was very confusing for me in the beginning. And my colleague would say, yeah, we fix everything on the farm because you can't pay someone else to fix it. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. And, they're so handy with, like, they would fix their houses, and houses are built very differently in the US from in India. And you're like, how do you fix a house? Fix flooring and it seems very complicated. Over time, you figure out and learn the skills. But so how do you get all these people to access STEM jobs? And there might be people who are interested in art, who want to be content creators. I mean, there are a lot of jobs out there. But I'm just saying, if this is the thing, this is a growing sector. There's going to be more and more and more opportunities. No matter whether you're an artist, you use technology. You could be a makeup artist. You could be anything. Literally everybody uses technology. Your grandparents use technology. There is nobody who doesn't. The question is, do you want to be a part of that economy to do it? Because technology is changing. There's always jobs. Yes, they will change with AI. And like I said, you get to work on cool stuff. You get to get paid well. You get to grow. And then maybe you may change your mind and want to be an entrepreneur tomorrow. It doesn't matter what you choose. But that is a good ecosystem. So my thing is, how do we get more people? And this is a very interesting thing. So when I came to the US, and I think many of us who come from India, you hear about STEM challenges in the US. I'm sure India has some sort of it, but in India, you don't think about it. You don't have that. I mean, there may be less girls in engineering school, but it's not a STEM challenge the way the US seems to define it. Because I remember going for this offsite meeting, and there were 3 of us from India, and all 3 of us said the same thing. We don't think of STEM as a challenge because a lot of people go to engineering school. In some ways, in India, being smart is cool. Like here, athletes are cool. In India, being smart is not a bad thing. You're kind of like actually the cool kid on the block. So it's a very different mindset when you come here and you're like, that is not a good thing. I'm like, okay, I guess I don't get it, but it's okay to be smart there. So it's a very different mindset. And the reason I bring it up is, in conversation with young people, sometimes that's what derails them. They don't want to be thought of geeky. I know kids who don't want to be in a robotics club because they don't want to be categorized as such or be a part of this demographic. And I'm like, you're losing out so much opportunity just because you don't want a label stuck on you, when you could drive so much more. Don't let that label or peer pressure, if that is what's driving you, stop you from doing it. Yes, you
Yep.
can be a cheerleader and be in STEM in the robotics club. Doesn't matter. And I had this fascinating conversation with this young lady who watched Barbie, which, by the way, I haven't seen. But what she said is, what she took away from it is, because she sees this happen in school, she said, I realized that I can be smart and I can be feminine. She thought she had to pick a lane, because if she showed up like this, the way her friends treated her was very different. And I was like, I hadn't even thought of it like that. So it is okay to own different parts of your personality. And it's very hard for us to do that. And I can totally understand there's peer pressure as a teenager. I cannot imagine how hard it must be.
Yeah.
But find an adult, find something, but don't let someone else dictate what you should do for yourself.
That's a drop the mic moment.
That was a total drop the mic. That was just a thing of beauty. That was a masterclass, Dr. Sirisha. I could not agree with you more. That was such a profound, whatever you want to call it, right there. Damon, I don't know about you. A lot of times, it's not cool or hip if you're, smart. So, then you become the dumb jock. And then my problem, I wasn't even a good athlete, so I couldn't, I was just dumb. So I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. What a great line that was. Thank you for sharing that brilliance. Be competitive. Be proud of being smart. I just thought that was awesome. All right, I know you have tons of lives that you're changing the world and making the world a better place, Dr. Sirisha. I'm going to let you go. I have one last question, and we'll let you go. Now that you're an entrepreneur, best business advice that you've ever been given. What would you say is the best business advice that you really either live with on a daily basis or that has helped propel your business? Best business advice.
You're going to fail sometimes, and sometimes it's better to fail fast than pull the idea through continuously and think. I mean, there's a tipping point when some ideas succeed, but sometimes it's just not going to work, but you want to pour energy into it. Just let it go. Don't be wedded to the idea. I think that's the hardest part as an entrepreneur. You're stuck on your idea and you own it and you love it. But if you look at any company's history, the extremely successful ones that we know, they didn't start where they were. They pivoted. Probably many of them didn't stay where they were. Maybe they had a grand vision or did not. Don't be wedded to that idea. In the end, your energy, what you like, what you want to do, it all come together. So that is part of figuring out that journey.
Fail fast and pursue. And hey, Gail's here today, Damon.
Hey, Gail.
Happy Friday to you, my friend.
And then she's doing the fail fast is so true.
That's right. So, all right, Damon, we will wind down.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sirisha, we can find you on LinkedIn. We have your TED Talk in the chat box. Any place else that you'd like folks to find you?
Yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn. If people are looking for, having a conversation on advanced manufacturing workforce development solutions, they can still find me on LinkedIn and check out my Sahita Technologies webpage, and you can connect with me. And we can see how to work together.
Well, first off, I want to give you a huge, huge thank you. And how about a huge round of applause, Damon? And let's give Dr. Sirisha a wonderful round of applause for just being so awesome, sharing your energy, your inspiration, your truth today. We appreciate you. We applaud you. We commend you. Keep inspiring our young folks out there and just let them know how wonderful manufacturing is. You are an incredible inspiration to all of us. Damon, takeaways. You want to close us out? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's great to see and hear you talk about, getting women, young people into tech and STEM, because it's not just great, it's an incredible career choice, but so many people don't even consider it.
Right.
And they're sitting on the sidelines and things that they may not enjoy nearly as much as they would.
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. Don't let that be a barrier. Try and see it. If you don't like it, you can always switch.
Yep.
It's hard to switch back to STEM. It's easier to switch out of STEM.
That's right. Well, great advice. So we wish everybody out there, thank you for joining us. Thank you for everybody that was in the chat. Thank you for everybody that joined us today and caught Dr. Sirisha. This was just a wonderful conversation. We wish everybody a wonderful, safe, fantastic, holiday Memorial Day weekend. And Damon, let's close it out, my friend.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, Ronald, thanks for stopping by, dropping a comment
Facebook
in. But thanks everyone for being here. Gail, Diane, the others, Ronald, as you said, thanks for being here. If you didn't hear this from the beginning, go back to the beginning, listen to Dr. Sirisha talk about empowering women and students in tech and STEM. It was just awesome. So thank you everyone for now. We will be back again next week. Have a great weekend.